It was gone. Sir Gnomeford 3. My beloved garden gnome had disappeared without a trace. In its place, an ominous white slip fluttered in the morning breeze, pinned to the dirt like a gravestone marking the death of freedom. I bent down, heart pounding, and snatched it up. The homeowner association violation notice was printed in thick, patronizing font. Hello, beautiful people. Before we dive into this story, if homeowner association Karen drive you crazy too, you're in the right place. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Just one click makes a huge impact. Now, get into it. Unauthorized lawn ornament removed per community guidelines. Compliance required for neighborhood aesthetic standards. At the bottom, a smug autograph. Karen Simmons, homeowner. Association president. I gritted my teeth. That gnome had stood proudly in my front yard for 3 years, greeting every guest with his mischievous smirk. And now, thanks to the self-appointed dictator of our neighborhood, he was gone. Not stolen, not knocked over by a careless kid. No, officially removed. Like some kind of public threat. I could practically hear Karen's voice in my head, that harsh tone dripping with superiority, justifying why a harmless gnome was apparently the downfall of civilization. I stormed across the street, past the perfectly symmetrical hedges of Karen's house, and knocked on the door. Seconds later, it swung open, revealing Karen herself in full battle mode, manicured nails, pressed yoga pants, and that ever-present clipboard. Of destruction, Jack, she said, drawing out my name like it was an annoyance. What can I do for you? You can start by explaining why you stole my gnome. Shot back, waving the violation slip like a courtroom exhibit. Because last time I checked, this was my property. Karen sighed exaggeratedly, stepping onto her porch as if she had to explain algebra to a particularly slow student. Jack, the homeowner association guidelines clearly state that non-standard lawn decorations are not permitted. We aim for a consistent neighborhood appearance, and frankly, that little creature was an eyesore. I crossed my arms. An eyesore? It was a foot-tall gnome, Karen, not a neon billboard advertising doomsday. She gave a tight-lipped grin. The kind designed to make you want to punch something? The rules exist for a reason. And as homeowner association president, it's my responsibility to enforce them. And where exactly is my gnome now? I asked, voice dangerously calm. She waved a dismissive hand seized. You can retrieve it at the next homeowner association meeting if you'd like to discuss this properly. Oh, I'll discuss it, I said, turning on my heel. But trust me, Karen, this isn't over. I spent the rest of the afternoon fuming. My neighbor and best friend Mike showed up just in time to witness my frustration in full force as I kicked at the patch of dirt where my gnome once stood. Mike was the kind of guy who thrived on disorder, and the moment he heard the story, his eyes lit up. Like a kid in a joke store. She actually took it? He asked, laughing. Dude, that's insane. She's insane, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. She acts like she owns this neighborhood. I swear, it's like a tyranny with a neighborhood watch badge. Mike leaned against my porch railing, pensive. You know what this calls for? I looked at him. A legal battle. He smirked. Revenge. I exhaled slowly. Mike, I'm already getting fined if I so much as sneeze too loudly. She'll probably write me up for noise pollution. Mike waved a hand. Nah, you got to think bigger. You can't just react to Karen. You got to make a statement. I gave him a look. I feel like you already have a terrible idea for me. He grinned. Oh, I do. And you're going to love it. That's when he pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. A moment later, he turned the screen toward me. There, in glaring high definition, was an image of a massive 10-t tall metal middle finger statue. I nearly gasped on my own breath. You have got to be kidding me. Mike shrugged. It's art. And last time I checked, there's no homeowner association rule against art installations. I stared at the image, my mind a battlefield of logic and sheer pettiness. Karen had taken my gnome. She had overstepped, flaunted her power like some medieval queen ruling over her peasant subjects. And here in front of me was a way to show her. No, show everyone that I wasn't backing down. How much? I asked. Mike grinned. A little pricey, but totally worth it. Plus, I know a guy who can have it here. In 2 weeks, no questions asked. 2 weeks. That was just enough time for Karen to get comfortable thinking she had won. I clenched my jaw, staring at the empty spot where Sir Gnome Ford 3 once stood. Do it. Mike fist pumped the air. Hell yes. This is going to be epic. That night, I received the confirmation email. It was happening. The wheels were in motion, and soon Karen Simmons would regret ever messing with my lawn. What I didn't realize, though, was just how far she was willing to go to fight back. Because when that statue arrived, the real war would begin. 2 weeks passed in a blur of anticipation, secrecy, and barely contained excitement. Every morning, I walked past the spot where Sir Gnome Ford 3 once stood, imagining the magnificent sight that was about to take its place. My wife had rolled her eyes when she found out about the statue, murmuring something about childish feuds. But even she had to admit that Karen had it coming. Mike was more excited than I was, practically trembling with energy as we counted down the days. Then finally, the moment arrived. A massive delivery truck pulled up in front of my house, its size already drawing the attention of my inquisitive neighbors. I stepped outside just as the delivery guys hopped out, one of them holding a clipboard and the other looking at the crate with barely hidden entertainment. The crate was enormous, taller than I was, and the moment it touched my driveway, I knew there was no turning back. As I signed the paperwork, I spotted Karen across the street. She had been trimming her hedges with the accuracy of a surgeon, but now she stood paralyzed, watching the delivery with narrowed eyes. Even from a distance, I could feel the storm brewing. She smelled rebellion like a bloodhound, and the fact that she didn't yet know what was inside that crate was the only thing keeping her from marching over immediately. With the help of Mike and my teenage son, we carefully forced open the crate. The moment the last nail was pulled free, the wooden panels fell away, revealing the grand creation in all its splendor. A solid metal statue, 10 feet tall, of a perfectly sculpted middle finger. The sunlight caught the polished surface, making it shine like a beacon of resistance. It was, without a doubt, the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Mike let out a low whistle, arms crossed. Jack, my man, this is a work of art, my son. Recording the entire thing on his phone, burst out laughing. This is going to break the web. I barely had time to admire our work before Karen came storming across the street, her sneakers practically burning against the pavement. She didn't even bother with fake pleasantries this time. Her face was red, her eyes wide with rage, and the clipboard of authority was already in her hands. What the hell is that? She yelled, pointing a trembling finger at the statue. I took a slow sip of my coffee, savoring the moment before answering. It's sculpture, she gasped, eyes starting from the statue to me and back again. This is unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. There is no way this is within homeowner association guidelines. I shrugged. Actually, it is. The bylaws prohibit small garden decorations, but they're nothing about large-scale art installations. This is legally an artistic statement. Karen's expression shifted, her brain scrambling for an argument. It's offensive. You can't just put a giant middle finger in your yard. I raised an eyebrow. You took my gnome. I'm just filling the empty space. At this point, a small crowd had gathered. Neighbors glanced from their porches, some pretending to water plants that didn't need watering. A few of them chuckled under their breath, others openly enjoying the show. Karen noticed the audience and straightened her posture, clearly trying to regain control. I will be calling an emergency homeowner association meeting, she announced. We vote on a new bylaw prohibiting this disgusting display. Good luck with that, Mike muttered beside me, barely holding back a grin. Karen stormed off, her clipboard clutched so tightly, I thought it might shatter in her grip. As soon as she was gone, the tension broke and the neighborhood erupted into hushed laughter. A few people even applauded. That night, the homeowner association email landed in my inbox. A mandatory meeting was set for the next evening with one agenda: discussion and resolution of inappropriate property installations. Karen was moving fast, eager to crush my defiance before it spread. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't alone. People were tired of her dictatorship, and my statue had become a symbol of opposition. The next evening, I walked into the homeowner association meeting like a gladiator entering the arena. Karen sat at the head of the table, flanked by her loyal followers, elderly meddlers and self-important homeowners who had nothing better to do than police the height of people's grass. But across the room a different energy hummed. My neighbors, the silent victims of Karen rule, had shown up in force. Karen wasted no time. We are here to vote on a new bylaw that will prohibit inappropriate and offensive lawn displays. This includes, but is not limited to, vulgar statues. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. Define vulgar. She narrowed her eyes. You know exactly what I mean, I shrugged. It's a matter of opinion. Some people find wind chimes annoying. Should we ban those too? A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Karen's expression tightened. One of the older men, a longtime resident, spoke up. Jack has a point. If we start forbidding things just because we don't like them, where does it end? Another neighbor chimed in. Honestly, I think it's hysterical. Karen, you've been writing everyone about their lawns for years. Maybe you had this coming. Karen's face turned an unnatural shade of red. This isn't about me. This is about maintaining order. Mike, ever the instigator, leaned forward. Or is it about you not being able to manage everything? Karen looked ready to explode. We are voting those in favor of banning the statue. Raise your hand. A few of her loyalists raised their hands, but the rest of the room hesitated. Slowly, hands started raising on my side. The vote ended in a tie. Karen looked like she had swallowed a lemon. She slammed her gavel down, barely keeping herself together. Fine. The motion does not pass. But this is not over. As I walked out of the meeting, I felt the shift. Karen's grip on the community was weakening. The uprising had begun. But I should have known she wouldn't go down without a fight. Because that night, she made her next move. A move that could actually take me down. I woke up the next morning feeling triumphant. The vote had ended in a tie, which meant my statue was safe for now, and Karen had been forced to swallow a loss in front of the entire neighborhood. The air felt crisper, the coffee tasted better, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had the upper hand. That feeling lasted all of 5 minutes before I heard the sound of a car pulling up outside. Stepping onto my porch, I saw a city inspector getting out of a small white vehicle, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning my yard with professional displeasure. My stomach dropped. Karen was moving fast. The inspector, a middle-aged man with thinning hair and the energy of someone who detested their job, barely glanced at me before speaking. Are you the property owner? Yeah, I said cautiously. Got a complaint about an unapproved structure violating municipal code. Need to take a look. I folded my arms. A complaint from who? The man sighed, flipping through his papers like he had better things to do. Anonymous. But let's not kid ourselves. He gestured toward the statue. That's the one in question, right? I nodded, feeling irritation boiling beneath my skin. Of course. Karen hadn't been satisfied with the homeowner association loss. She had gone over my head, bringing the city into this fight. The inspector circled the statue, taking pictures, occasionally jotting something down. Finally, he turned back to me with a look that was almost regretful. Technically, it violates city ordinances regarding structures exceeding height limitations for non-permanent lawn decor. You've got 48 hours to remove it or you'll be facing fines. My jaw clenched. So if it was, say, a 10-foot Santa Claus, would that be a violation? The inspector hesitated. Well, seasonal decorations are usually given temporary exceptions. A light bulb went off in my head. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Understood? 48 hours, huh? Yep. He handed me a copy of the violation notice, then climbed back into his car, leaving me standing there with my brain already spinning. Karen thought she had won. She thought she had finally outmaneuvered me, but she didn't know who she was dealing with. By that afternoon, Mike was at my house again, laughing so hard he had to wipe away tears as he stared at the sheer brilliance unfolding in front of him. We had spent the last 2 hours stringing Christmas lights around the middle finger statue. A massive Santa hat now perched on top, and garlands wrapped around the base. "This is hilarious," Mike choked out, snapping pictures. My son, who had been helping hang the decorations, grinned. "This is going to be iconic." Karen, of course, noticed immediately. She was outside within minutes, sputtering incoherently as she took in the transformed statue. "What the H this?" I turned, putting on my best innocent face. "Seasonal decor. City ordinance allows it." She looked like she was about to break something. "This is not a holiday decoration. It's an obscene gesture wrapped in sparkles." I shrugged. "I don't see anything obscene. Looks like a festive display to me." Karen's hands clenched into fists. "I'm calling the city again." "Go for it," I said cheerfully. "And when they confirm that I'm within my rights, I hope you enjoy the view, because this bad boy is staying up until the holidays are over." She let out a frustrated noise and stomped away, practically shaking with rage. The next morning, she made her biggest mistake. Desperate and at her breaking point, she attempted to take matters into her own hands. I was sipping my coffee, enjoying the sight of my beautifully decorated holiday finger, when I heard a ruckus outside. Karen, dressed in what could only be described as battle gear, sweatpants, a hoodie, and thick gardening gloves, was standing in front of the statue, gripping the base and trying to push it over with her entire strength. For a solid 30 seconds, I just watched, too stunned to process what was happening. She strained, grunting like a woman obsessed, her sneakers slipping in the grass. The statue, of course, didn't budge an inch. Then, just as I snapped out of my shock and pulled out my phone to record, the inevitable happened. Karen lost her balance, waved wildly, and crashed backwards straight into a patch of mud left over from last night's rain. The splatter was spectacular. She let out a shriek, arms flailing as she tried to scramble to her feet, but the mud was thick, and in her panic, she only managed to dig herself deeper. I had seen a lot of things in my life, but nothing compared to the sheer poetic justice of watching my power-hungry homeowner association president writhing in the dirt, covered head to toe in filth. My son was already recording. Within minutes, the video was on social media, and it spread like fire. Homeowner Association Karen versus the finger became an instant hit. Neighbors shared it, friends laughed, and before long, had thousands of views. Karen, now the laughingstock of every neighborhood joke, was utterly humiliated. That night, I received an email from the Homeowner Association board. Effective immediately, Karen Simmons was being removed as president due to misbehavior. I stepped outside, taking in the sight of my victory. The statue stood tall, wrapped in lights, a beacon of defiance, and at its base, where Karen had tried and failed to erase my spiteful revenge, I placed a brand new garden gnome. "Sir, game for 3 had returned. And this time, he wasn't going anywhere."